Some truths live in the silence between words. They exist in glances that last too long, in goodbyes that feel like beginnings. And when those truths finally break free, everything changes. I'm going to tell you the story of Sarah Mitchell and Rachel Collins, two women who worked together at a Manhattan publishing house, colleagues who became inseparable friends until Sarah vanished without explanation for 3 years. One afternoon, Sarah returned to the old apartment 407 in Park Slope, Brooklyn, to pick up a forgotten box. Just work files, she told herself. A quick visit. Nothing more. But when Rachel opened that door and their eyes met after all that time, something shifted in the air. Something dangerous. Because what Rachel said to Sarah in that hallway wasn't a simple, hello. It was the confession they'd both been drowning in for years. I never told you the truth. What I felt wasn't friendship. And in that moment, Sarah realized that everything she'd built to run from her own heart was about to crumble. Because Rachel didn't just confess what she felt. She revealed that Sarah had always felt it too. This isn't just a story about hidden love. It's about truths too heavy to carry, fear transformed into courage, and two women who had to burn down their perfect lives to build something real. Stay with me until the end to discover this story. See you soon. Sarah knew she shouldn't have come back. She realized it the moment her fingers trembled as she punched in the building's entry code in Park Slope, that code she'd never forgotten despite not setting foot there for 3 years. She realized it when the elevator creaked with that same rusty sound, and her stomach twisted in a way that had nothing to do with the mechanical motion. She realized it when she reached the 4th floor, and the hallway smelled exactly the same. Lavender detergent mixed with Mrs. Peterson's coffee from apartment 402, and something else. Something that only existed in this building, in these hallways, in this life she'd left behind. But most of all, she realized it when she rang the doorbell of apartment 407 and heard footsteps approaching from the other side. Footsteps she would recognize anywhere in the world. The door opened, and Rachel was there. 3 years later. 3 years that felt like 3 decades in the knot that instantly formed in Sarah's throat. Sarah. Rachel's voice came out like a broken whisper, as if saying that name cost her all the air left in her lungs. There was no hug, no smile, just a silence so thick that Sarah could feel it pressing against her chest, entering through her nose, filling the space between them like a physical, suffocating substance. Rachel's eyes traveled across her face with an intensity that made Sarah want to run. Run far away, run toward her, run back to the elevator and never return. Sorry, Sarah heard her own voice as if it came from far away. I know I should have called. It's just that I left a box with work documents, important papers, and... She was over-explaining, talking too fast. Rachel said nothing, just looked at her with those brown eyes that always seemed to see more than Sarah wanted to show. Come in, Rachel finally said, stepping aside. And Sarah walked in. The apartment was exactly the same. The same beige furniture, the same floor lamp by the window, the same bookshelf packed with old editions Rachel collected from second-hand markets. Even the crooked picture on the hallway wall was still crooked, tilted to the left at the same impossible angle Rachel never fixed, because she said it gave character to the space. But something had changed. The air. The way Rachel moved through the living room. The way her shoulders tensed every time Sarah took a step. The box is in the bedroom, Rachel said, without looking at her, walking toward the back of the apartment. I kept it when you left. I thought, well, that you'd come back for it sooner. I thought you'd come back sooner. The words hung in the air like a silent accusation. Subscribe now. YouTube prioritizes subscribers, and those who aren't subscribed miss future stories. Sarah followed her down the hallway she knew by heart. She'd walked down that hallway hundreds of times, thousands. She'd been in this apartment more times than she could count. Entire nights correcting manuscripts for the publishing house where they both worked. Complete weekends lost in conversations that started at 10 in the morning and ended when the sun was already peeking through the window again. But never, not once, had the hallway felt as long as it did now. Rachel's bedroom was immaculate as always. The bed perfectly made with that navy blue comforter Sarah had always thought was too serious for someone like Rachel. The desk by the window where Rachel spent hours writing literary reviews. And there, in the corner, next to the closet, was the cardboard box sealed with tan tape. "There it is," Rachel pointed, crossing her arms over her chest in a defensive gesture Sarah knew all too well. Sarah approached the box, crouched down, and in that moment, felt Rachel's gaze fixed on the back of her neck. She could feel it. Physical. Heavy. Burning. She opened the box with hands that weren't just trembling, but actually shaking. Inside were her things. Folders from the publishing house, a gray sweater she'd forgotten, a mug with the university logo, and a photograph. Sarah pulled it out slowly, as if it might disintegrate on contact. It was of the two of them, in Central Park, some random Sunday 4 years ago. Rachel had shorter hair. Sarah wore those ridiculous sunglasses she later lost in a cab. They were sitting on a bench near Bethesda Fountain, with pretzels and coffee, laughing at something the photograph couldn't capture, but Sarah remembered perfectly. Rachel had said something about a client at the publishing house who insisted their romance novel should include a love triangle with an alien. And Sarah had spit out her coffee laughing. "I didn't know you had this photo," Sarah whispered, unable to take her eyes off the image. "I didn't," Rachel responded, and her voice sounded strange, tense, broken. "I found it a month ago. It was in one of the boxes I never unpacked when you left. I didn't know that. I didn't remember that." She stopped. Sarah looked up and found her with bright eyes. She wasn't crying, but she was about to. "Why didn't you ever answer my messages?" The question shot out of Rachel's mouth like a bullet. Direct, accurate, painful. Sarah stood up slowly, still holding the photograph between her fingers. "Rachel. 3 years, Sarah. 3 years without knowing anything about you. You left, and it was like you'd never existed. You change publishing houses, change neighborhoods, change your number, and just disappear. Why?" Rachel's voice rose with each word. She wasn't yelling, but almost. "I couldn't stay," Sarah answered, and felt the room getting smaller. "You know that." "What do I know? I don't know anything. You never told me anything." "Because there was nothing to say." The silence fell like a concrete wall between them. Rachel looked at her with a mixture of pain and anger Sarah had never seen on her face. And in that moment, Sarah knew she was lying, that she'd always been lying, because there was something to say. Something that had been there for years, growing in the silences, in the looks that lasted too long, in the goodbyes that stretched unnecessarily, in the way their hands accidentally touched more and more frequently. "I have to go," Sarah said, putting the photograph back in the box and closing it with clumsy movements. "Thanks for keeping this." She picked up the box and walked toward the bedroom door. But Rachel didn't move. She stood right in the doorframe, blocking the exit. "That's it?" Rachel asked, and there was something dangerous in her voice. "You come after 3 years? Pick up your box and leave again? What do you want me to do, Rachel? I want you to tell me the truth." Sarah felt her heart climbing into her throat. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do." Rachel took one step toward her. Just one. But it was enough for Sarah to feel the air evaporating from the room. "You know perfectly well what I'm talking about." "I have to go," Sarah repeated, but didn't move. "You always have to go." Rachel's voice no longer sounded angry. It sounded broken. Every time we feel. "Don't," Sarah interrupted, shaking her head. "Don't do this." "Do what?" "Say what we both know." "I have a boyfriend, Rachel. You have a boyfriend. This is the only real thing I've had in years." The words hung suspended in the air like a spell. Sarah felt her legs weakening. "You can't say that." "Why not?" "Because it's uncomfortable." "Because it complicates your perfectly planned life?" Rachel ran a hand through her hair, a gesture of frustration Sarah had seen 1,000 times. "I know you, Sarah. I know you better than anyone in this world, and I know you feel it too." "I don't know what you feel," Sarah said, and her voice sounded pathetic even to her own ears. "But You what?" Rachel closed the distance between them. They were inches apart. So close Sarah could see the small golden flecks in her brown eyes. So close she could feel her labored breathing. "You what, Sarah?" Sarah dropped the box. The sound of cardboard hitting the floor seemed to break something in the air, something that had been contained for far too long. "We can't," Sarah whispered. "Why not?" Because it's wrong. Because things aren't like that." "Then how are things?" Rachel raised a hand, and for one terrible and beautiful second, Sarah thought she was going to touch her, that she was going to put that hand on her cheek and everything would go to hell. But Rachel let her hand fall before it arrived. "Explain to me how things are, Sarah, because I don't understand anything anymore." Sarah closed her eyes. Rachel's scent enveloped her. That perfume she always wore, something with notes of vanilla and wood. A scent Sarah had tried to forget for 3 years and that now hit her with the force of a train. "I have to go," she said for the 3rd time, and this time it sounded like a plea. "Then go." Rachel stepped aside, clearing the exit. "Go like you always do. Go and pretend none of this happened. Pretend you don't feel the same way I do. Pretend you haven't thought about me every day for these 3 years." Sarah opened her eyes abruptly. "How do you know?" "Because I did too." Rachel's voice finally broke. "Every day, Sarah. Every damn day." Sarah felt something breaking inside her chest. Something she'd been holding in for so long, she didn't even remember what it was like to live without that constant pressure. She bent down, picked up the box from the floor, and walked toward the door without looking back. Because if she looked back, if she saw Rachel one more time, she knew she wouldn't be able to leave. She crossed the hallway, crossed the living room, reached the front door and put her hand on the handle. "Sarah," Rachel's voice came from the hallway, soft, devastated. Sarah closed her eyes. "I hope you're happy," Rachel said. "I really do. With Michael. With your new life. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for." Sarah turned the handle and left the apartment without saying another word. The hallway was empty. The elevator took forever to arrive. Sarah got in, pressed the button for the ground floor, and as the doors began to close, she managed to see the door of 407 still open. And Rachel, standing in the doorframe, looking at her with an expression Sarah knew would haunt her for the rest of her life. The doors closed. The elevator descended. And Sarah, for the first time in 3 years, began to cry. Outside, Park Slope continued with its usual chaotic rhythm. Street vendors shouted their offers on the corner of 7th Avenue. The F train rumbled past on the elevated tracks. The Brooklyn sky looked gray as it almost always did, threatening rain that probably would never come. Sarah walked toward the 7th Avenue subway station with the box under her arm and red eyes. Her phone buzzed. A message from Michael. "What time are you getting here? I made a reservation at that Italian place you like." Sarah stared at the message for a long time. Michael, her boyfriend of 2 years, architect, kind, stable, perfect on paper. He liked Tarantino movies, cooked better than she did, and had that kind of contagious laugh that made everyone in a room turn to look. And Sarah felt absolutely nothing when she kissed him. She put away her phone without answering. She arrived at her apartment on the Upper West Side an hour later. A small but bright space she'd rented when she got the position at the new publishing house. A place that never quite felt like home. She left the box on the dining table and stared at it as if it were a bomb about to explode. Inside was that photograph. Inside were years of what if. Sarah poured herself a glass of water, sat on the couch, and for the first time in a long time, allowed herself to remember. She'd met Rachel 5 years ago at Horizon Publishing, a small but respected publishing house in Manhattan. Sarah had just started as a copy editor. Rachel had been there for 3 years, working in the acquisitions department. They met in the 3rd-floor break room. Sarah was desperately looking for the microwave, and Rachel pointed out it was hidden behind some filing boxes. "Mrs. Gomez always leaves her stuff there," Rachel had said with a smile. "One day we're going to find the Holy Grail among all that paper." Sarah had laughed. A genuine laugh. The kind she hadn't had in months since arriving in New York City, fleeing from her small Connecticut town, from her family, from the expectations that suffocated her. They started having lunch together. Then afternoon coffee. Then staying extra hours, reviewing manuscripts, though half the time they just talked. Rachel told her about her boyfriend, David. Graphic designer, worked from home, good person, but distant. "Like he's always thinking about something else," Rachel would say. Sarah told her about her family in Connecticut, how her parents expected her to marry the mayor's son, how she'd fled to the city with barely enough money for the first month's rent. They became inseparable. And that's where the problem started. Because Sarah began to notice things, the way her heart raced when she saw Rachel enter the office. How she looked for excuses to touch her hand when passing documents. How weekends felt eternal and empty if she didn't see Rachel. At first she thought it was just friendship. A very close friendship. The kind you read about in books. But then came that December night. Company holiday party. Everyone drinking. Rachel in that green dress that made her eyes shine in an impossible way. Sarah trying not to look at her too much and failing miserably. They ended up on the building's rooftop where the event was held, escaping the accountant's disastrous karaoke. It was cold. A strange cold for New York. Rachel was shivering. Sarah had taken off her jacket and put it over her shoulders. Their hands touched, and in that moment, as Rachel looked at her with those eyes that seemed to see straight through all the lies Sarah had been telling herself, Sarah knew. She knew she was in love with her best friend. She knew it was the worst thing that could have happened to her. And she knew Rachel knew it too. Because Rachel hadn't moved, hadn't looked away. She'd just whispered, "Sarah." And Sarah had run away. Literally. She'd gone down the stairs, taken a cab, and hadn't answered Rachel's calls or messages for 3 days. When she finally returned to the publishing house, she acted like nothing had happened. And Rachel, after staring at her for a long time with a mixture of confusion and pain, had done the same. But everything had changed. Lunches became shorter, coffee breaks more sporadic, conversations more superficial. And Sarah, in a desperate attempt to normalize her life, started dating Michael. A friend of a friend. Someone safe. Someone who didn't make her feel like she was about to jump off a cliff every time they were in the same room. 6 months later, She accepted the job at the other publishing house. And a week before leaving, she sent Rachel a message saying she needed a change of scenery. Rachel responded, "I understand. Take care." That was all. 3 years of silence after 5 years of... what? Friendship? Something more? Something that could never have a name because they were both too afraid to say it out loud. Sarah pulled the photograph out of the box. There they were, smiling, unaware of everything that would come after. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Michael. "Everything okay?" Sarah looked at the message, looked at the photograph, looked at the ceiling of her empty apartment. And for the first time in 3 years, she allowed herself to be honest with herself. She wasn't okay. Nothing was okay. And probably nothing would be okay as long as she kept running. 4 days passed before Sarah opened the box again. 4 days of going to work like an automaton, smiling at appropriate moments, nodding when Michael talked about his architectural projects without really hearing a word he said. 4 days of checking her phone every 5 minutes expecting... what? A message from Rachel, a sign from the universe telling her what to do? Nothing came. Friday night, Michael showed up at her apartment with a bottle of wine, and that optimistic smile Sarah used to like, but now only made her feel overwhelming guilt. "I thought we could stay in," Michael said, kissing her cheek. "Order Chinese food. Watch that show you wanted." Sarah forced herself to smile. Sounds perfect. But it wasn't. They ate in silence. Well, Michael talked about his day, about a difficult client, about a project that had finally been approved by the city. Sarah nodded at the right moments and murmured appropriate things, but her mind was miles away. It was in apartment 407 in Park Slope. It was seeing those brown eyes full of unshed tears. It was hearing that broken voice. "Every day, Sarah. Every damn day." "Sarah?" Michael's voice pulled her from her thoughts. "Huh?" "I asked if you wanted more wine." Michael looked at her with a worried expression. "You've been very quiet. Did something happen?" Sarah opened her mouth to say no, everything's fine. But the words didn't come out. Instead, she heard herself say, "We need to talk. If this doesn't deserve a like, I don't know what does." Michael set his glass on the table slowly, as if he already knew what was coming. "About us?" Sarah nodded. The silence that followed was different from the one she'd shared with Rachel. This was cold, uncomfortable. The silence of two people who knew what was coming would hurt, but was already inevitable. "There's someone else," Michael said. It wasn't a question. "No," Sarah answered, and technically it was true. Because there was nothing between her and Rachel. Nothing concrete. Nothing she could point to and say, "This is what connects us." It's not that. Then what is it? Sarah got up from the couch and walked to the window. Outside, the Upper West Side vibrated with its nightlife. Full restaurants, people laughing on terraces, couples walking hand in hand. "I'm not being fair to you," she finally said. "I haven't been for a long time." "Why do you say that?" "Because..." Sarah closed her eyes. "Because I care about you. Really. You're good to me. You're kind and funny and everything I'm supposed to want in a partner. But I don't love you." The words came out like a sigh. Like a confession she'd been holding back since the day she met Michael. "Not the way you deserve to be loved." Michael said nothing for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded tired. "I know." Sarah turned toward him, surprised. "You know?" "Sarah, I've been with you for 2 years. 2 years where I've always felt like there's a part of you that's somewhere else. Like you're physically here, but emotionally somewhere else. with someone else. Michael. He raised a hand, stopping her. Don't tell me who it is. I don't want to know. He ran a hand over his face. I just want to know if we ever had a real chance. Or if I was always, I don't know, a placeholder? The words were like a slap. No, you weren't that. I wanted it to work. I wanted to feel for you what you feel for that other person. Michael finished the sentence for her. I know. He stood up, picked up his jacket from the back of the couch. I'm going to go, he said. I think we both knew this was going to happen eventually. We were just postponing the inevitable. I'm sorry, Sarah whispered, and tears finally began to fall. I really am sorry. Michael approached and kissed her forehead, a tender gesture. Final. Me too, he said. I hope that person, whoever they are, knows how lucky they are. And he left. Sarah stood in the middle of her living room, listening to the sound of the door closing, Michael's footsteps fading down the hallway, the absolute silence that remained after. She collapsed on the couch and cried. She cried for Michael, whom she'd just hurt. She cried for herself, for the years she spent lying to herself. But most of all, she cried because now that she'd ended the relationship that kept her safe, she had no more excuses. She could no longer keep running. Saturday morning, Sarah woke up with swollen eyes and a decision made. She took out her phone, and before she could convince herself not to, wrote a message. Rachel, I need to see you. Please. She pressed send before panic could stop her. The response came 5 minutes later. I'm home. Nothing more, but it was enough. Sarah showered, put on the first thing she found in her closet, and left her apartment as if she were being chased. The subway ride from the Upper West Side to 7th Avenue in Brooklyn had never seemed so long. Each station was an eternity. Each red light when she took the last stretch walking seemed like a conspiracy of the universe. When she arrived at the building in Park Slope, her hands were shaking so much she could barely punch in the entry code. She took the stairs this time. She couldn't wait for the elevator. She couldn't stay still for one more second. She reached the 4th floor breathless. She rang the doorbell of 407. Rachel opened almost immediately, as if she'd been waiting on the other side. She looked terrible, marked dark circles, hair pulled back in a messy bun, an old sweatshirt Sarah recognized as the one Rachel wore when she was sad. Hi, Rachel said, and her voice sounded as tired as her appearance. Hi, Sarah responded. They looked at each other for several seconds. The empty hallway behind Sarah, the half-dark apartment behind Rachel. Are you going to come in or are we going to stand here? Rachel asked, and there was a trace of humor in her voice. Small, but it was there. Sarah entered. The apartment smelled of freshly brewed coffee. Rachel closed the door and walked toward the kitchenette. Want some? She pointed to the coffee maker. Yes, thanks. Rachel poured 2 cups. She passed one to Sarah without their fingers touching. A careful movement. Intentional. They sat on the couch, one at each end. The space between them seemed like an abyss. I broke up with Michael, Sarah said without preamble. Rachel looked up from her cup abruptly. What? Last night, we broke up. Sarah, Rachel set her cup on the coffee table. You didn't have to. Yes, I did, Sarah interrupted. I should have done it a long time ago. I just didn't have the courage. What changed? Sarah looked directly into her eyes. You. Seeing you again reminded me what it's like to feel something real. The air in the room changed. It became denser, more charged. Rachel ran a hand over her face. I don't know what you want me to say, Sarah. I want you to tell me if what you said the other day was true. Sarah left her own cup and leaned forward. That thing about thinking about me every day, was it true? Rachel closed her eyes. Every second of every day, she whispered. Since you left. Since before you left. Probably since the day I met you. Sarah felt her heart leaving her chest. Why didn't you ever say anything? Why didn't you ever say anything? Rachel opened her eyes and looked at her with an intensity that made Sarah shudder. Because it's terrifying. Because it changes everything. Because admitting this is... It's like jumping out of a plane without a parachute, hoping someone catches you before you crash. I would catch you, Sarah said, and her voice sounded firmer than she felt. Would you? Because the last time things got intense between us, you ran away. Literally. And then you disappeared for 3 years. The reproach hurt, because it was fair. I was scared. I'm scared too. Rachel's voice broke. I'm terrified, Sarah, because I also have a life. I also have a boyfriend. I also have a family that asks me every Sunday when I'm going to get married and give them grandchildren. And admitting this, admitting what I feel for you, means detonating all of that. I know. Do you know? Do you really know? Rachel stood up from the couch and started pacing. Because it's easy to break up with your boyfriend when you already knew you didn't love him. But I care about David. He's a good person. He takes care of me. And breaking his heart to be with. She stopped, as if it cost her to say the next word. To be with a woman. With my best friend. It's what? Sarah stood up too. Impossible? Wrong? It's terrifying. Everything worth having is terrifying. Don't quote self-help phrases at me right now. Rachel stopped and looked at her with bright eyes. This isn't a book, Sarah. This isn't one of those romance stories we edit at the publishing house. This is real. And real means consequences. It means disappointing people I love. It means facing prejudice. It means being happy. Sarah closed the distance between them. It means stopping pretending. It means being able to wake up every morning and be who you really are. If any part of this story feels like your life, the hype button helps make sure it doesn't stay silent. And who am I? Rachel's voice came out as a whisper. Because I've spent so long being what others expect me to be that I don't even know anymore. You're Rachel. Sarah raised a hand, hesitated for a second, and finally placed it on Rachel's cheek. You're the person who reads 3 books a week, who cries at bad movies and laughs at good ones, who collects old editions because you say they have soul, who hates cilantro but eats it anyway because you don't want to offend anyone, who has that crooked picture that you never fix, and who looks at me in a way no one else ever has. A tear rolled down Rachel's cheek, falling onto Sarah's hand. I'm so scared, Rachel whispered. Me too. What if we're wrong? What if we're not? Rachel closed her eyes, pressing her cheek against Sarah's palm. I don't know how to do this, she said. I don't know how to be this. Nobody knows at first. Sarah used her thumb to wipe away another falling tear. But we can learn. Together. Rachel opened her eyes. And in them, Sarah saw years of denial, of fear, of wanting something and not daring to take it. But she also saw something else. She saw hope. I still have to talk to David, Rachel said. I can't. It wouldn't be fair to start something with you without ending that first. I know, and I have to. I have to figure out how to do this, how to tell my family. How to. One step at a time, Rachel put her hand over Sarah's, intertwining their fingers. Okay? Okay. They stayed like that for a long time, hands intertwined, foreheads almost touching, breathing the same air. Sarah? Rachel whispered. Yes? When I finish with David, when we've both done what we have to do, would you let me take you to dinner, like on a real date? Sarah felt a smile spreading across her face, the first genuine smile in days. I'd love that. Rachel smiled too, and it was like watching the sun rise after years of storm. They separated slowly, reluctantly. I should go, Sarah said, though the last thing she wanted was to leave. Probably. Rachel walked with her to the door. But Sarah... Yes? Thank you for coming back, for being brave when I couldn't be. I'm not brave, Sarah shook her head. I'm terrified. That's what makes it brave. Sarah stepped out into the hallway. She turned to look at Rachel one more time. See you soon, she said. See you soon, Rachel repeated. And this time, when the door closed, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a beginning. Sarah arrived at her apartment with a strange sensation in her chest. Light. As if something heavy she'd been carrying for years had finally left. She sat on the couch, took out her phone, and looked at the photograph she'd taken from the box. The two of them in Central Park. Smiling, happy. Soon, she thought. Soon that happiness wouldn't have to be hidden. Her phone buzzed. A message from Rachel. I talked to David. He's coming tomorrow. I'm terrified. Sarah responded immediately. You're going to be okay. You're doing the right thing. And no matter what happens, I'll be here. Thanks. That means everything. Sarah lay back on the couch, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in 3 years, the future didn't feel like a sentence. It felt like a possibility. Terrifying, uncertain, but possible. And that was enough. Sunday arrived with gray skies threatening rain, but, as almost always in New York, probably wouldn't deliver on that promise. Sarah woke up early with her stomach in knots. She knew Rachel would be having the conversation with David that day. And though it wasn't her responsibility, though technically she hadn't done anything wrong, she felt like she was destroying someone's life. Her phone stayed silent all morning. At noon, she couldn't take it anymore and sent Rachel a message. Are you okay? The response came 20 minutes later. No, but I did it. I broke up with him. Sarah felt a knot in her throat. Relief mixed with guilt. Happiness intertwined with regret. How are you? Destroyed, but free. Does that make sense? All the sense in the world. He asked me to tell him why. I told him the truth. Sarah stared at the message, her heart beating hard. What did you tell him? That I fell in love with someone else. I didn't tell him who. But I think he suspects. He was always more observant than I thought. Sarah sat on the edge of her bed, holding her phone with both hands. How did he react? He cried. He told me he knew, that he'd been feeling it for months. Then he asked me if I was happy. And when I didn't know how to answer, he said that was enough of an answer. Sarah felt tears running down her own cheeks. I'm so sorry. Me too, but Sarah, despite everything, I feel more like myself than I have in years. Does that make me a horrible person? No, it makes you human. Several minutes passed without messages. Sarah thought the conversation had ended when her phone buzzed again. Can I see you? Now? I need not to be alone. But if it's too much to ask, tell me where. Prospect Park, in an hour. Sarah arrived at Prospect Park 40 minutes later. The place was full of families strolling. Joggers with their dogs, vendors selling ice cream and cotton candy. A normal Sunday for everyone except her. She found Rachel sitting on a bench under an oak tree, staring at the lake in front of her. She wore jeans and a gray hoodie, her hair loose and windswept. She had red eyes. Sarah sat beside her without saying anything. For several minutes, they just stayed there, watching people pass by. "Thanks for coming," Rachel finally said, without looking at her. "I'll always come when you need me. Even when what I need is to destroy my life and other people's." "You didn't destroy anything." Sarah turned toward her. "You were honest. That's never destruction." Rachel let out a bitter laugh. "You should have seen his face, Sarah. The way he looked at me when I told him I couldn't continue. Like I'd betrayed him in the worst possible way." "I understand. Do you? Because I still don't understand anything." Rachel finally looked at her, and her eyes were full of confusion and pain. "A week ago, my life made sense. I had a job I liked, a boyfriend who loved me, future plans. And now you're free to be who you really are." "And who am I, Sarah?" Rachel's voice broke. "A 28-year-old woman who just realized she's never really loved any man? Someone who's been living a lie her whole life?" Sarah took Rachel's hand in hers. A simple gesture, but it felt like crossing a bridge. "You're someone who had the courage to be honest," Sarah said. "That's not a small thing." Rachel closed her eyes, squeezing Sarah's hand. "I have to tell my family." The words hung in the air like a sentence. "You don't have to do it now," Sarah said gently. "Yes, I do. My mom already called me 3 times asking about David. We have dinner together every Sunday. If I don't go today, she'll suspect. And if I go and don't bring David, she'll ask. And I can't. I can't keep lying to her." "What are you going to tell her?" Rachel opened her eyes and looked directly at her. "The truth. That I broke up with David. That I'm in love with someone else." "Are you going to tell her it's me?" "I don't know. Maybe. Should I?" Sarah thought about her own family in Connecticut, about her mother, who still asked her when she was going to settle down, about her father who'd said more than once that those strange things didn't happen in families like theirs. "Only you can decide that," Sarah said. "But whatever you decide, I'll be here. You're not going to be alone in this." Rachel leaned forward, resting her head on Sarah's shoulder, a gesture they'd done hundreds of times before. But now it felt completely different. "I'm so scared," Rachel whispered. "I know. Me too." They stayed like that for a long time. Sarah could feel Rachel's weight against her, could smell her perfume mixed with the scent of damp earth coming from the park's flower beds, could feel Rachel's heart beating against her arm. And in that moment, despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, despite everything that would come after, Sarah knew she was exactly where she needed to be. Rachel went to her parents' house that afternoon. Sarah went back to her apartment, unable to concentrate on anything. Every time her phone rang, she jumped. But no message was from Rachel. 2 hours passed. 3. 4. At 8 in the evening, when Sarah was already considering taking a cab to Rachel's parents' house just to make sure she was okay, a message finally arrived. "It was a disaster," Sarah called immediately. Rachel answered on the second ring. "What happened?" Sarah asked without preamble. Rachel's voice sounded destroyed. "I told them I broke up with David. My mom cried. She said we were the perfect couple, that we were going to have beautiful children. My dad just stayed quiet, with that face he makes when he's disappointed. Rachel, and when I told them why, when I told them there was someone else, my mom asked what his name was, and I couldn't lie to her, Sarah. I'm tired of lying." Sarah felt her blood freezing. "Did you tell her it was me?" "I told her it was a woman." Rachel's voice broke completely. "And my mom. My mom looked at me like she didn't know me, like I was a stranger, and she said..." Rachel couldn't continue. From the other side of the line, Sarah could hear her crying. "What did she say, Rachel?" "She said that wasn't possible, that I wasn't like that it was a phase, that I was confused, and when I told her no, that this was real, that I'd been feeling it for years, she told me it was better if I left, that she needed time to process this." God, Rachel. "And my dad just got up and went to his study. He didn't even look at me, Sarah. He couldn't even look at me." Sarah closed her eyes, feeling Rachel's pain as if it were her own. "Where are you now?" "At my apartment, alone. David picked up his things yesterday while I was at the park with you. He left the keys on the table and now this place feels so empty. I'm coming over." "No, Sarah, you don't have to." "I'm coming over," Sarah repeated, already grabbing her jacket. "I'm not leaving you alone, not tonight." Rachel didn't protest anymore. Sarah took an Uber. The drive from the Upper West Side to Park Slope had never seemed so long. When she arrived at apartment 407, Rachel opened the door with swollen eyes and a box of tissues in her hand. Sarah walked in, and without saying anything, hugged her. Rachel collapsed in her arms. She cried for everything she'd lost that day, for her mother's look, for her father's silence, for the life she'd imagined and now knew she'd never have. And Sarah held her while she cried, while she trembled, while the world Rachel knew crumbled around her. When the tears finally subsided, they sat on the couch. Sarah didn't let go of her hand. "I'm sorry," Rachel whispered. "I didn't want to drag you into all this." "You didn't drag me into anything." Sarah squeezed her hand. "I chose to be here, and I'd choose it again. My family hates me. Your family is in shock. Give them time. They'll understand." "What if they don't?" Sarah didn't have an answer for that, because the truth was, maybe they wouldn't understand. Maybe they'd never accept it. And that possibility was terrifying. "Then we'll build our own family," Sarah finally said. "Together." Rachel looked at her with eyes full of tears. "How can you be so sure? About us? About this?" "Because I've spent 3 years knowing that nothing else in my life has felt as right as this." Sarah brought Rachel's hand to her lips and kissed it gently. "And if we have to face the whole world to be together, then that's what we'll do." "Sarah, I know it's hard. I know it hurts. But Rachel, look at me." Rachel looked at her. "This is worth it," Sarah said. "You're worth it. What we feel is worth it." Rachel closed her eyes and one last tear rolled down her cheek. "I'm afraid of losing you too." "You're not going to lose me." Sarah wiped away the tear with her thumb. "I promise, no matter what happens. I'm not going anywhere." Rachel leaned forward until her forehead touched Sarah's. "Can I ask you something?" she whispered. "Anything. Stay with me tonight. Just stay. I don't want to be alone." Sarah nodded. "I'll stay." They stayed on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, watching a movie neither of them really paid attention to. Rachel fell asleep with her head on Sarah's shoulder, and Sarah stayed awake, stroking Rachel's hair, thinking about everything that would come next, because this was just the beginning. The families, the friends, the work, the whole world that would have opinions about what they were, about what they felt, about whether they had the right to be happy together. But as she watched Rachel sleep, her face finally relaxed after a horrible day, Sarah knew she was ready. She was ready to fight. She was ready to defend this. She was ready for anything that came. Because for the first time in her life, she'd found something worth fighting for. The following week was one of the hardest in Sarah's life. Rachel didn't hear anything from her parents. She called her mother 3 times. All 3 calls went straight to voicemail. She sent messages. No response. The silence was worse than any fight. Sarah, on her part, had to face her own battle. Monday morning, when she arrived at the publishing house, her boss called her into her office. "Sarah, I need to talk to you." Margaret Roberts was a 50-year-old woman with short hair and glasses that always slipped down her nose. She'd been Sarah's mentor since she arrived at the publishing house, and now she looked at her with an expression Sarah couldn't decipher. "Is something wrong?" Sarah asked, sitting in the chair in front of the desk. Margaret sighed. "A rumor reached me, and normally I don't pay attention to rumors, but this one involves your personal life, and I need to know if it's true." Sarah felt her stomach drop. "What kind of rumor?" "That you broke up with your boyfriend because you're dating a woman." The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah wondered how the hell Margaret had found out. Who knew? Who had said it? "Who told you that?" Sarah asked, and her voice came out colder than she intended. "That doesn't matter. What matters is if it's true. And if it is." Now Margaret took off her glasses and cleaned them with the edge of her blouse, a gesture Sarah had seen hundreds of times when she was nervous. "Then we have a problem." Sarah felt her blood freezing. "A problem?" "Sarah, this publishing house has certain standards, an image to maintain, and although personally I have nothing against people like you, people like me." Margaret put her glasses back on. "People who have different preferences." Sarah stood up, her hands shaking with rage. "Preferences? You're really going to call it that?" "Sit down, please." "No." Sarah grabbed her bag. "I'm not going to sit while you tell me that who I am is a problem for the publishing house's image." "It's not personal, Sarah." "Not personal." Sarah let out a bitter laugh. "You're questioning my life, my relationship, who I am as a person, but it's not personal, right? I have to think about the rest of the team, the clients, the homophobia disguised as corporate standards." Sarah walked toward the door. "I understand perfectly." "Sarah, wait. I quit." The words came out of her mouth before she could think them. "If my sexual orientation is a problem for this publishing house, then I don't want to work here anyway." Margaret was speechless. "You don't have to make hasty decisions." "It's not hasty." Sarah opened the door. "It's the clearest thing I've thought in years." She left the office, walked straight to her desk, packed her things in a cardboard box she found in storage, and left the building without looking back. When she reached the street, with the box under her arm and adrenaline running through her veins, she realized what she'd just done. She'd just quit her job, without another job waiting, without substantial savings, with rent to pay and bills to cover. Her phone rang. It was Rachel. "Hi," Sarah answered, trying to sound normal. "Something happened," Rachel said immediately. "Your voice. What happened?" Sarah sat on a bench outside a Starbucks. "I just quit." "What?" Sarah told her everything. The conversation with Margaret, the words she'd said, the rage she'd felt. "God, Sarah." Rachel sounded devastated. "This is all my fault." "Your fault? How is this your fault? If I hadn't looked for you, if I hadn't said anything, then I'd be living a lie," Sarah interrupted. "And I'd rather be unemployed and honest than have a job and keep lying about who I am." But Sarah, I'm okay. Really, scared, yes. But I also feel free. For the first time in my life, I defended who I am. And that feels good. She heard Rachel breathing on the other side of the line. You're the bravest person I know, Rachel finally said, or the most impulsive. Both things can be true. Rachel let out a small laugh. Where are you? Outside a Starbucks in Midtown, with all my office stuff in a box that I'll probably have to carry on the subway. Don't move. I'm coming to get you. Rachel, you don't have to. I'm already leaving. Rachel hung up before Sarah could protest. 20 minutes later, she arrived in an Uber. She got out, saw Sarah sitting on the bench with the box beside her, and simply hugged her. I'm sorry, Rachel whispered. I'm sorry you're going through all this. Don't be sorry. Sarah pulled back and looked at her. I chose this. I chose you. And I'd do it again. Rachel kissed her. Right there, in the middle of a midtown street, with people walking around, with the world watching. And for the first time, neither of them hid. When they separated, both were smiling. Let's go home, Rachel said. Which home? Mine. Yours. Doesn't matter. As long as we're together. They got in the Uber. The driver looked at them through the rearview mirror, but said nothing. Where to? He asked. Sarah and Rachel looked at each other. Park Slope, Rachel said. Apartment 407. During the ride, Rachel took Sarah's hand in hers. I have to tell you something, she said. What? My sister called me last night, after you left. Your sister? Sarah knew Rachel had a younger sister, Emma, who lived in Boston. What did she say? My mom called her, told her everything, and Emma told me she already knew. Sarah looked at her surprised. She already knew? Rachel nodded. She said she always knew I was different, that the way I talked about you, the way I lit up when I mentioned your name. She said it was obvious to anyone who really knew me. What else did she say? Rachel smiled, and it was a genuine smile, the first in days. She told me she was proud of me, that I'd been very brave, and that when I wanted to officially introduce her to my girlfriend, she'd be delighted to meet her. Sarah felt her eyes filling with tears. Girlfriend? Well, we haven't had that conversation officially, Rachel blushed. But would you like to be my girlfriend? Sarah let out a laugh mixed with crying. Yes, I would. They kissed again, and this time the driver smiled in the rearview mirror. When they arrived at Rachel's apartment, they climbed the stairs holding hands. And when Rachel opened the door to 407 for the first time, Sarah felt like she was coming home. I have to look for a job, Sarah said, leaving the box on the floor. And I have to tell my family, and probably a million other things I haven't thought of yet. I know. Rachel closed the door and hugged her. And all of that is scary, but you don't have to do it alone. I'm here, for whatever you need. Sarah rested her head on Rachel's shoulder. How did everything fall apart so fast? Because sometimes things have to fall apart to be rebuilt better. Rachel kissed her forehead. And we're going to rebuild, together. They stayed like that for a long time, hugged in the middle of the apartment that was now beginning to feel like both of their refuge. Sarah's phone rang. A message from her mother in Connecticut. Your Aunt Rose told me she saw on social media that you broke up with Michael. Is it true? Call me. Sarah showed the message to Rachel. God, news travels fast, Rachel said. My family is like CNN but with more gossip. What are you going to tell her? Sarah looked at the message for a long time. The truth, she finally said. I'm tired of lying. Do you want me here when you call her? Would you do that? I'd do anything for you. Sarah took a deep breath and dialed her mother's number. Her mom answered on the first ring. Sarah? Honey, what's going on? Your aunt says. Mom, Sarah interrupted. We need to talk. And with Rachel holding her hand, Sarah finally told her mother the truth. She told her she'd broken up with Michael. She told her she'd met someone else. And when her mother asked who it was, Sarah closed her eyes and said, It's a woman, Mom. I fell in love with a woman. The silence on the other end of the line was devastating. What's her name? Her mother finally asked, and her voice sounded small, broken. Rachel. Her name is Rachel. And are you sure? Sure this is what you want. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Her mother said nothing for several seconds that felt like hours. I don't know what to say, she finally admitted. I didn't expect. I never thought my daughter. I know, Mom, and I know it's hard to understand, but I'm still me. I'm still Sarah, just now I'm a more honest version of myself. What's your father going to say? I don't know, but I hope you both can try to understand. I need time, her mother said, to process this, to understand it. Take all the time you need. But Sarah, yes, you're still my daughter, no matter what, okay? Sarah felt tears flowing freely down her face. Okay, Mom. Thank you. She hung up the phone and collapsed in Rachel's arms. It's done, she whispered. I told her. Everyone knows now. Everyone knows, Rachel repeated, holding her. And we're still here. Together. Outside, the sky finally delivered on its promise and started to rain. That typical New York rain that comes suddenly and soaks everything in seconds. But inside apartment 407, Sarah and Rachel were dry. They were safe. And for the first time in a long time, they were whole. They didn't know what would come next. They didn't know if their families would accept them. They didn't know how they would navigate a world that wouldn't always be kind to what they were. But they knew they'd do it together. And that, for now, was enough. 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks in which Sarah sent her resume to 12 different publishing houses. 3 weeks in which Rachel started therapy to process everything that had happened. 3 weeks in which they both learned to be girlfriends for real, without hiding, without lying, without pretending they were just friends. 3 weeks that were the hardest and most honest of their lives. Sarah officially moved into apartment 407. It wasn't a planned decision. She just started spending more nights there than in her own apartment on the Upper West Side. And when her landlord told her he was raising the rent, Sarah made the decision. Are you sure? Rachel had asked when Sarah told her she wanted to move in with her. It's very soon. We've barely been this for a month. Sarah had smiled. I've been this with you for years. We can just admit it now. And so, on a rainy Saturday in April, Sarah packed her life into boxes and moved it to Park Slope. Mrs. Peterson from 402 helped them carry some boxes up. A 70-year-old lady with bright red dyed hair and a personality that didn't fit in her 5-foot frame. About time, she'd said while holding a box of books. I've been watching you two look at each other for years. I thought you'd never make a move. Sarah and Rachel had been speechless. You knew? Rachel had asked. Honey, I'm not blind. Mrs. Peterson had entered the apartment and set the box on the floor with a sigh. When two people look at each other the way you two did, there are only two options. Either they're in love or they're planning a murder. And since neither of you seems like a murderer... She'd shrugged and left the apartment humming a Billy Joel song. Rachel had closed the door and looked at Sarah. Were we that obvious? Apparently, they'd laughed. And it had been the first genuine laugh in weeks. Life as a couple turned out to be different from what they both expected. It wasn't perfect. There were days when Rachel woke up crying, missing her family. There were nights when Sarah stayed awake until 3 a.m, obsessed with finding work, with savings dwindling every day. But there were also mornings of shared coffee by the window, watching Park Slope's chaos wake up. There were afternoons editing manuscripts together, because Rachel had gotten Sarah freelance work at her publishing house. There were nights of bad movies and Chinese food straight from the carton. There were kisses in the dimly lit kitchen. There were conversations until dawn. There was an intimacy neither of them had experienced before. "Sometimes I feel guilty," Rachel had confessed one night, lying in bed, with Sarah tracing distracted circles on her arm. "Why?" "Because you lost your job because of me. Because your relationship with your family is tense because of me. Because your life got complicated because of me." Sarah had sat up, looking at her directly. "My life got complicated because I was finally honest. That's not your fault, Rachel. It's just what happens when you stop lying. Things get complicated, but they also become real. Don't you regret it? Being with you? Not for a second. And everything else?" Sarah had thought about that, about the job she'd lost, about her mother's expression when she told her, about the awkward messages from old friends who just wanted to know if it was true. "No," she'd finally said, "because everything else brought me here, to this moment, with you, and this moment. This moment is perfect." Rachel had cried, but this time they were good tears. One Thursday afternoon, while Sarah was reviewing another job offer that probably wouldn't call her back, her phone rang. It was her mother. Sarah looked at the phone with her heart racing. They hadn't talked since that call 3 weeks ago. Only short messages. Superficial. The, "How are you?" and "Everything's fine" type. "Aren't you going to answer?" Rachel asked from the kitchen, where she was making coffee. "I don't know. Answer. Whatever she's going to say, at least you'll know." Sarah took a deep breath and answered. "Mom?" "Hi, honey." Her mother's voice sounded tired, but not angry. "Can you talk?" "Yes, I can. Your father and we've been talking. A lot. And, well, I think we need to see each other. Talk in person." Sarah felt her throat closing. "Talk about what?" "About everything. About you. About Rachel. About this new life you're building." "Mom, if you're going to..." "I'm not going to ask you to change," her mother interrupted. "We already talked about that with your father. We can't ask you to change who you are. But we do need to understand. And to understand, we need to meet her. Meet Rachel." Sarah felt her legs trembling. "You want to meet Rachel?" "Yes, your father too. If she's that important to you, if she's the person you chose, then we want to meet her." Sarah had to sit down. "When?" "Next Sunday. We can come to the city. Or if you prefer, you can come to Connecticut." "Come to the city," Sarah said quickly. The idea of taking Rachel to Connecticut, to her family home, still felt too overwhelming. We can have lunch together, here in Park Slope, or at a restaurant. Wherever's most comfortable for you, honey." "Mom, thank you for trying. You're my daughter." Her mother's voice broke a little. "And I love you, even when I don't understand, even when it's hard. I love you." Sarah closed her eyes, feeling tears running down her cheeks. "I love you too, Mom." When she hung up, Rachel was standing next to her with 2 steaming cups of coffee. What happened? Sarah looked at her, with a smile mixed with tears. They want to meet you. My parents want to meet you. Rachel almost dropped the cups. What? Sunday, they're coming to the city and they want to meet my girlfriend. Rachel set the cups on the table with shaking hands. God, okay, that's good, right? It's good. It's very good. I'm going to throw up. Sarah let out a laugh. You're not going to throw up. Sarah, your parents are coming here to meet me. To meet the person who turned you lesbian, or however they're seeing it. You didn't turn me into anything. Sarah stood up and took Rachel's hands in hers. You just helped me be who I always was, and my parents will understand that. Eventually. What if they don't like me? Impossible. You're impossible not to like. Rachel let out a nervous laugh. What am I going to wear? What do I say to your mom? Do I bring flowers? Is that done? Sarah kissed her knuckles. You're going to be yourself. That's all you need to be. Sunday arrived too quickly. Rachel changed clothes 4 times. Sarah had to convince her the navy blue dress was perfect, and that no, she didn't look too gay. And that yes, despite biting her nails all week, she looked beautiful. They cleaned the apartment until it shone. Rachel bought flowers to put on the table. Sarah made sweet tea and a 3-milk cake she'd learned to make from her grandmother. At 2 in the afternoon, the doorbell rang. Sarah and Rachel looked at each other. Breathe, Sarah said. I'm breathing. Breathe more. They opened the door. Sarah's parents stood in the hallway. Her mother, Linda, with her hair pulled back in a low bun, and that flowered dress she always wore for special occasions. Her father, Robert, in a dress shirt and jeans, with his hands in his pockets in that nervous gesture Sarah knew too well. Mom, Dad, Sarah said, and her voice came out shakier than she expected. Her mother hugged her first. A long hug, tight, the kind that says I missed you without words. Honey, her mother whispered, it's so good to see you. Her father also hugged her, quicker, more awkward, but it was a hug nonetheless. When they separated, her parents' eyes landed on Rachel, who stood by the door with a nervous smile. Mom, Dad, Sarah said, taking Rachel's hand. This is Rachel, my girlfriend. The word felt strange and wonderful at the same time. Rachel extended a hand. It's an honor to meet you, ma'am. Sir. Sarah's mother looked at the extended hand for a second that felt eternal. Then, instead of shaking it, she pulled Rachel into a hug. Call me Linda, she said, and thank you for taking care of my daughter. Rachel stood rigid with surprise for a second before returning the hug. She takes care of me too. Sarah's father nodded silently, but shook Rachel's hand firmly. Robert, he introduced himself. They entered the apartment. Sarah served the sweet tea. Rachel offered the cake. And for several minutes, everyone sat on the couch without knowing exactly what to say. It was Linda who finally broke the silence. This place is very nice, she said, looking around. Bigger than I thought. Thank you, Rachel said. I've lived here 4 years. Well, now we live here. Both of us. Robert cleared his throat. What do you do for work, Rachel? I'm an acquisitions editor at Horizon Publishing. I look for new talent, evaluate manuscripts, that sort of thing. She's very good at what she does, Sarah added. In fact, thanks to her, I've gotten freelance work while I look for something permanent. You're still without a job? Linda asked with genuine concern. Yes, but I'm in some interviews. There are possibilities. "And why did you leave the other one?" Robert asked. "Sarah told me you quit, but she never said why." Sarah and Rachel looked at each other. "There were differences of opinion," Sarah said carefully. "About my personal life." Robert frowned. "Did they discriminate against you?" Sarah nodded slowly. Her father stayed silent, with an expression Sarah couldn't read. Then, surprising her completely, he said, "That's not right. It doesn't matter what one thinks about other people's decisions. Work is work. Personal life is personal life." Linda took her husband's hand. "Your father and I have been talking a lot about this," she said, looking at Sarah. "And while we're not going to lie and say we completely understand it, or that it wasn't hard for us to accept, you're our daughter, and we want you to be happy." "I am happy," Sarah said, and her voice broke. "Very happy." "It shows." Linda smiled, and there were tears in her eyes. "You look different. More you, if that makes sense." "It does," Sarah whispered. Rachel squeezed her hand under the table. Linda turned toward Rachel. "And you take care of my daughter. I can see that. The way you look at her. The way—" She stopped, wiping her eyes. "I just ask that you keep doing it. Taking care of her. Making her happy. It's the easiest thing I've ever done," Rachel said, and sounded completely honest. Robert nodded. "And your parents?" he asked. "How did they take it?" Rachel's smile faded a bit. "Not as well as you. We still haven't talked since I told them." "I'm sorry," Linda said. "That must be very difficult." "It is, but I have Sarah, and that makes it more bearable." Linda nodded, with an expression of understanding Sarah didn't expect to see. The rest of lunch went more easily. They talked about normal things, about Robert's work at the hardware store, about how the neighbor's dog had eaten Linda's garden flowers, about a book Rachel had recently edited that became a bestseller. And when her parents left hours later, there were more hugs, and the promise of more visits. "Next time," Linda said, hugging Sarah at the door, "you both come to Connecticut. I want Rachel to see the house, and meet your brother, and your grandmother." "Grandma knows?" Sarah asked, surprised. "I told her. And you know what she said? As long as she makes her happy, I don't care if it's a man, woman, or Martian." Sarah let out a laugh mixed with crying. When they finally left, Sarah closed the door and let herself fall against it. Rachel sat beside her on the floor. That was incredible," Rachel said. "I can't believe it worked. Your parents are incredible. They're not perfect, and they'll probably say awkward things sometimes, and wonder out loud if it's a phase. But they're trying, and that's more than I expected." Rachel took her hand. "Do you think my parents will ever—" "I think so," Sarah said. "Give it time. Your mom loves you. I know it. And love always finds a way." Rachel rested her head on Sarah's shoulder. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too." They stayed there, sitting on the hallway floor, with the door closed behind them and the whole future ahead. 2 months later, Sarah got a job. Not at a big publishing house like she'd hoped, but at an independent bookstore in the West Village that also offered writing workshops. The pay was less than what she'd earned before, but the atmosphere was warm. The owners, a couple in their 60s who'd been together for 30 years, had hired her the moment Sarah casually mentioned she lived with her girlfriend. "We need more people like you here," Marcus, one of the owners, had said. "People who understand what it means to build an authentic life." Sarah had accepted the job immediately. Rachel continued at her publishing house, but things had changed. After 3 months of absolute silence, her mother had finally called. It wasn't an easy conversation. There were tears, there were harsh words, but in the end, her mother had said, You're my daughter, and even though I'm struggling to understand it, I'm not going to lose you over this." It wasn't complete acceptance, but it was a beginning. Her father still wasn't talking to her, but Emma, her sister, came to visit them every month from Boston. And little by little, Rachel was building a new definition of family. One Saturday in June, 6 months after that day, Sarah had returned to apartment 407 for a forgotten box. Rachel woke up with an idea. "Let's go on a trip," she told Sarah, who was still half asleep. "What?" "A trip. Just us. Somewhere nobody knows us, where we can just be us." Sarah sat up, rubbing her eyes. "Where?" "I don't know. Portland, upstate New York, Vermont, anywhere that's not here." Sarah smiled. "When?" "Next long weekend. I requested vacation. You have Mondays off at the bookstore. We could go for 3 days." "What about money?" "I have savings," Rachel shrugged. "And I've been wanting to do this for months. I just want a few days where we don't have to think about families or jobs or what others will say. Just you and me." Sarah kissed her. "Then let's go." They went to Portland, Oregon. They rented a small room in a hostel downtown. They walked through tree-lined streets, ate at food trucks and local breweries, visited Powell's bookstore and the Japanese garden. And for the first time since everything had started, they allowed themselves to be completely free. They held hands in public without fear. They kissed in plazas full of people. They introduced themselves as a couple to everyone they met, and the world didn't end. Nobody looked at them with horror. Nobody judged them. Some tourists smiled. Some local couples nodded in solidarity. The world kept spinning, and they kept being happy. One night, sitting on the hostel's rooftop, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink, Rachel said, "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't come back that day? For the box?" Sarah thought about that all the time. "What do you think would have happened?" "I think I would have eventually drowned in my own lie," Sarah said. "I would have continued with Michael, probably married him, had the life I was supposed to have, and been miserable." "Me too," Rachel admitted. "I think I would have married David, had children, a house, everything my parents wanted, and every day I would have woken up wondering what it felt like to be truly happy. But you came back," Sarah said, taking her hand, "and everything changed. Do you regret it?" "Not for a second." They stayed like that until the sun completely set and the sky filled with stars. "Sarah," Rachel said after a long silence. "Yes?" "I want to build a life with you. A real life. Not just a shared apartment and weekends. I want everything. With you." Sarah turned to look at her. "What is everything?" "I don't know exactly," Rachel smiled. "But I want to figure it out. With you. I want to wake up with you every morning. I want to fight with you about silly things. I want to travel to new places. I want you to meet all my family, even those who don't understand. I want to introduce you as my girlfriend, my partner, my person, without hesitating for a second. I want a life where this is normal, where being us is the most natural thing in the world." Sarah felt tears running down her cheeks. "I want all of that too." "Really?" "Yes, with you. Everything. Always." They kissed under Portland's starry sky, and it was perfect. They returned to New York on Tuesday night. Apartment 407 welcomed them with its familiar scent of coffee and old books. Mrs. Peterson from 402 had left them a package of homemade cookies with a note that said, "Welcome home, lovebirds." Rachel had laughed. "I think we have a new grandmother." "I think so." That night, while unpacking, Rachel's phone rang. It was her mother. Rachel looked at the screen nervously before answering. "Mom?" Sarah couldn't hear the complete conversation, but saw Rachel's expression go from nervousness to surprise, to something that looked like hope. When she hung up, she had tears in her eyes. "What happened?" Sarah asked. "My mom." Rachel wiped away tears. "She wants us to come to dinner. Her and my dad. They said they want to meet you, officially, as my partner." Sarah felt her heart leaving her chest. "Your dad too?" Rachel nodded, unable to speak. Sarah hugged her. "See? I told you love always finds a way." Dinner with Rachel's parents was a month later. It was awkward. It was tense. Rachel's father barely spoke. Her mother asked many questions she clearly didn't know how to formulate without offending. But it was a beginning. And at the end of dinner, when they were saying goodbye, Rachel's mother hugged Sarah. "Thank you," she'd whispered, "for making my daughter happy." "She makes me happy too," Sarah had responded. It wasn't perfect. It probably never would be. But it was real. And it was enough. 6 months after that, in December, Sarah and Rachel organized a dinner at their apartment. They invited Sarah's parents, Rachel's sister, Mrs. Peterson, Marcus and his husband from the bookstore, some friends from the publishing house who had supported them from the beginning. Apartment 407 was full of people. Laughter, homemade food, and cheap wine. At one point in the night, Sarah found herself standing in the kitchen, watching everyone mingle in the living room. Rachel was showing her mom photos from the Portland trip. Her dad was awkwardly but kindly chatting with Sarah's dad about baseball. Mrs. Peterson was telling scandalous stories to Marcus and his husband, who were laughing out loud. It was chaotic. It was loud. It was imperfect. It was family. Rachel came over and hugged her from behind. "What are you thinking?" she asked in her ear. That a year ago none of them knew this was possible. And now? Now it's our reality. Rachel turned her to face her. "I love you," she said. "Thank you for having the courage to come back that day. Thank you for having the courage to tell me the truth." They kissed there, in the kitchen, with the noise of the party in the background. And when they separated, nobody was looking at them. Because it was no longer a novelty. It was no longer a scandal. It was no longer that thing we don't talk about. It was simply love. That night, after everyone left, after cleaning the dishes and putting away leftovers, Sarah and Rachel sat on the couch with a glass of wine each. "You know what I realized today?" Rachel said. "What?" "That we're happy, really, genuinely happy, and that everything we had to go through to get here was worth it." Sarah nodded, every second. "Do you ever wonder what's next? What comes after?" "All the time," Sarah admitted. "But it doesn't scare me anymore, because I know that whatever it is, we'll face it together." Rachel snuggled against her. "Together," she repeated. "I like how that sounds." "Me too." Outside, Park Slope slept its chaotic sleep. The trains kept passing. Vendors closed their stands. The city lights shone against the night sky. And inside apartment 407, two women who had loved each other in silence for years were finally living out loud. They didn't know what came next. They didn't have all the answers. There were still battles to fight, prejudices to face, families to keep convincing. But they had something more important than certainty. They had love. They had courage. And they had each other. And that, they discovered, was more than enough. 1 year after that day, Sarah returned to the old apartment for a forgotten box. Rachel gave her a surprise. She took her back to Central Park, to that bench near Bethesda Fountain where they'd taken the photograph so many years ago. "Do you remember this place?" Rachel asked. How could I forget? Sarah smiled. This is where you spit coffee from laughing. And this is where I first realized I was in love with you. Rachel took her hand. Even though it took me years to admit it. Why did you bring me here? Rachel took something out of her bag, a small box. Sarah felt her heart stopping. Rachel. It's not what you think, Rachel laughed. Well, it's similar, but not exactly. She opened the box. Inside were 2 simple silver rings. I know we still can't legally get married in this country, Rachel said, and I know maybe we never can. But I want the world to know you're mine, and that I'm yours. I want people to see us and know we're a family, that this is forever. Sarah felt tears running down her face. Are you proposing to me? I'm proposing life, Rachel smiled through her own tears. All of life, the good, the bad, and everything that comes after. What do you say? Sarah had no words, so she did the only thing she could do. She kissed her. Yes, she said when they separated. 1,000 times yes. Rachel put the ring on her. Sarah put the other on Rachel. And there, on the same bench where years ago they'd been just friends who looked at each other too much, they became engaged. People passed by around them. Some smiled, others frowned. Most just continued with their lives. But Sarah and Rachel weren't paying attention, because they'd finally learned that the only opinion that mattered was theirs. And they had chosen love. They had chosen truth. They had chosen an authentic life, even when the world wasn't always ready for it. And in that moment, with rings on their fingers and the whole future ahead, they knew they'd made the right decision. Because at the end of the day, love is always worth it. Even when it's complicated. Even when it's hard. Even when the world says it shouldn't exist. Love always, always is worth it. 2 years later, the United States made marriage equality legal nationwide. Sarah and Rachel got married on a sunny Saturday in March in a small ceremony in the same apartment 407 where it all began. Mrs. Peterson was the matron of honor. Both sets of parents attended. Emma was their witness. Marcus and his husband organized the music. It wasn't a big wedding. It wasn't a traditional wedding. But it was perfect. When the officiant declared them wives, they kissed under a rain of flower petals, and everyone applauded. That night, now as wives, they stayed awake in their bed, with their new rings shining on their fingers. Can you believe that 3 years ago we didn't even dare admit what we felt? Rachel said. And now we're wives. Sarah smiled. Legally, officially, without hiding. How do you feel? Like I can finally breathe completely? Rachel kissed her. Me too. They stayed like that, hugging in the darkness, listening to the sounds of Park Slope outside. And for the first time in their lives, everything was exactly as it should be. They'd lost things along the way. Jobs, friendships, years of living a lie. But they'd gained something much more valuable. They'd gained the freedom to be themselves. And that, in the end, was the only thing that really mattered. If you want the continuation of this story, write it in the comments, because that's the only way I'll know you're interested. And don't forget that YouTube only prioritizes subscribers. So subscribe now, so you don't miss the next stories that will make you believe in true love and in the courage to live authentically. This is just the beginning. See you soon.